Now is the time to set destructive partisanship aside, so destructive, and find the courage to answer hatred with unity, devotion, and love. Our future is in our control. America will rise to the challenge. We will always have, and we always will, win. The choice is ours, and ours alone. It is not up to mentally ill monsters. It is up to us. If we are able to pass great legislation after all of these years.
And that was President Trump speaking earlier today. Now, he stopped just short of calling for gun control. Instead, and I'm glad he did, addressing the mental illness component of these tragedies. The president said it's time for both parties to come together and get something done to ensure mass shootings don't happen again. These are really, really horrible tragedies. We're seeing them too often. Now, Republican Senator Pat Toomey, more of a moderate establishment Republican, did say it's time to pass gun control. He tweeted, quote, "While no law will end mass shootings entirely, it's time for Congress to act to help keep our communities safer. We should start by passing bipartisan proposals such as my legislation with Senator Joe Manchin to expand background checks to all commercial firearms sales." Well, there are already background checks mandated on those, and that's why I want to bring in my next guest, Dr. John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, arguably the most well-informed person in the United States on these issues. John, great to see you.
Good to see you.
So what is TOOMEY talking about in this bipartisan legislation with Joe Manchin, expanded or increased background checks on commercial sales? As far as I know, anytime you buy a firearm commercially from a federal firearms license holder at a gun store, at a gun show, I'm a gun collector. I've always had to undergo my NICS check, fill out all the paperwork. I've never been able to buy a gun commercially without a background check.
Yeah, I think he misspoke. I mean, if anybody reads his bill, with Manchin deals with the background checks on all private transfers of guns. And, you know, I understand they want to try to do something to stop these mass public shootings. I just wish they would try to do something that was in some way related to these mass public shootings. You know, you have, I guess it was like 9 Democratic presidential candidates on yesterday on Jake Tapper's CNN State of the Union. And background checks on private transfers, that was the #1 thing that keeps on being brought up. It was the #1 thing that Obama brought up when he was president. I only wish one of these reporters like Tapper would go and say, well, okay, can you point to one mass public shooting this century that would have been stopped, even assuming it was perfectly enforced, this law that would have stopped it, and they can't. And I wish...
No, because it hasn't happened. And just for the viewers, what Dr. Lott's talking about is what we call more colloquially a face-to-face transaction. John and I know each other. He wants to buy a gun from me. We meet at my house. I give him the gun. He gives me the money. I know he's a person of good character. He's a good guy. That's a private commerce transaction between two law-abiding Americans. I don't believe the government should be involved in that process. Too many think they should, but like you say, that's not where the guns used in crime are coming from. Now, John, before we run out of time, I've got a couple of minutes left here. I want to talk to you about a new call for an assault weapons ban. I hate that term anyway. These are not assault weapons. They're semi-automatics. We had one in 1994 that did nothing. It did nothing. It banned nothing. It changed the cosmetics on firearms that were functionally identical to what you could buy before the ban. It did nothing in terms of functionality. Regarding the data, did it do anything whatsoever, that 94 to 2004 ban, to prevent or reduce crime?
No. Again, it's another thing that they talk about doing, but even the Clinton administration, when they paid for academic studies themselves, the studies that they paid for couldn't find that it had any impact on crime rates. I mean, it'd be great if it did, but it didn't. And it's for the reasons that you say. If you go and there are lots of semi-automatic guns out there, lots of semi-automatic rifles, but they're not going after semi-automatic rifles in mass. What they're doing is they're saying there's certain guns that look like military weapons.
Right.
They fire the same bullets with the same rapidity. doing the same damage as any hunting rifle. But the ones that we are looking at look like an M16. Some people like guns that look a particular way. Who knows about taste or whatever on these things. But, why you want to pick out certain guns based on how they look? When the original assault weapons ban was passed, Dianne Feinstein and her staff went through gun catalogs and checked guns based on whether they look scary or not.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
It's just completely nonsensical stuff. So if I have other guns that function exactly the same way as the banned ones, why would you expect it to have any impact? And it didn't.
Well, it was the old liberal mantra, just do something. Dr. John Lott, crime prevention.
Yes, let's do something. Let's do something that matters.
Look, I agree with you. I agree with you, John. I couldn't agree more. I'm going to be bringing you back later this week, early next. We're going to be talking about this quite a bit more. Dr. John Lott, Crime Prevention Research Center. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Doctor.
Great talking to you.
All right, when we come back, going to continue our coverage of these two deadly mass shootings. They're blaming President Trump, but I'm going to show you the hypocrisy and all that when we get back. Stick with us.